Good day, everyone. Hello, my name is Rachelle, and we're going to be doing some pelvic floor therapy today to really help to treat those tissues and make sure that they're not too taut or overly stretched. So we'll talk more about what that all means. And this is a 30-minute class. What we'll be using today is, this is a soft, squishy ball. There's air in here, and it's quite big. It's about maybe, you can grab a cushion or a pillow and be able to fold it in half, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is a little throw cushion that you could use here, massaging with that, with the pelvic floor. So welcome. Put me on pause and grab those props, and then please come back, and we'll be doing this for about 30 minutes. And also, if you have any comments or questions that we can address these issues in another video for you. So common problems that might happen due to pelvic floor, I'll say dysfunction, but just the body's never really dysfunctioning, it's just functioning for different purposes. So the pelvic floor can get really tight because the body's adapting to sitting. So it's not really dysfunction, it's just how the body is responding to the feedback that we're giving the pelvic floor tissues. So, but some of the common issues that come with that are prolapse, meaning that the organ might drop through the orifice. Also, the urgency to get to the bathroom, or when you go to the bathroom, nothing's really happening, nothing's moving, nothing's going on, or you feel like you can't empty completely or eliminate completely. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that. We'll get started then. Grab a hold of your prop, whether it's the ball or the cushion, and we'll actually start by becoming seated on top of that. So the best way I like to do this is to come into a nice, easy cross-legged position. Take a hold of your prop that you're using and bring it underneath your pelvis. So you want to come on top of that perch. If you are working with a cushion, you might want to fold that cushion in half to give you a little more lift. Beautiful. So as we're here, the hips are a little bit elevated, and we will begin to move the pelvis. So with the ball, you're able to roll the ball, and you are moving along with it forward and back. Perfect. And then we'll start to wiggle. So the waist can move the spine. The waist moves in many different directions. The pelvis as well. So here we are focusing on the hip movement. So you might notice that my spine might be moving, but really think about your hips moving and circling around. So you want to have this sort of flowing wave movement with the hips. One hip is dropping, the other is lifting, and then we circle around the ball. The ball is helping us facilitate that circular motion, and then finding that waving circular motion the other direction here. So this is working into the low back as well, the quadratus lumborum, that low back muscle on both sides gets to lengthen and shorten as we move by elevating and depressing the hips or lowering the hips. Continue with this circling for 2 more times, and then coming back onto your centered perch right here. Bringing one hand on the chest and one hand on the belly. Come into your space of long, tall spine, and feel a sense of heaviness as you exhale. Breathing in, feel a sense of lightness, the head, the spine lengthening. And on your exhale, just the hips become heavy here. The best way to take care of our tissues, our immunity, our health, our wellness, is to come into the body mentally and seeing what's there. We store past traumas, might be a strong word, but past challenges in the tissues at times. and we just move on to the next thing, and that's considered often progress, moving on, just getting through. But we want to actually treat and take care of those aspects of our emotions that stay locked in the body itself. Breathing long and tall. And as you exhale, perhaps the mantra, I am safe. The pelvic floor houses the first chakra, the root chakra, and that color is red. So as you breathe, you can imagine in the area of the groin, a sphere of red spiraling, almost like a cone shape, pointing in any direction. And now see if you can point that cone shape circular spiral, pointing it forward. And imagine it blooming almost a little bit bigger, the way a flower would bloom. Continuing to breathe long and tall through the top of the head and heavy in the hips. And feeling the actual feedback of your cushion or that inflated ball. As you breathe in now, bring your awareness to the groin, to the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor are simply the tissues that are covered by a bicycle seat. So you want to have a sense of breathing into that space as if our lungs were transferred into the hips. And notice as you exhale, there might be a little bit of narrowing or tightening. And as you inhale, feel a sense of widening and blooming. Just this breath alone is wonderful therapy for the pelvic floor and will help to prevent prolapse, prevent urgency to the bathroom, and prevent incontinence when you're there, not being able to do anything. Pelvic floor issues also show up as low back pain. And those issues transfer up higher to the shoulders, to the neck, and even lower down to the knees, the ankles. One more long, deep breath here, softening down into that bicycle seat, relaxing. And then exhale. Beautiful. We'll come into a reclined position. So taking that prop out, we'll still be utilizing it. So bringing that ball beside you or the cushion beside you momentarily, and then we'll recline. Now, if you want a little pillow for your head or your neck, absolutely, you can grab that. But we'll come into this position on our backs, and we're going to go into that pelvic sort of clock movement again. So as you're here, lift your hips. And we want the hips to be lifted in higher than the rest of the torso. Throwing that ball or cushion underneath. And this is changing the impact of gravity on the pelvic floor. So just by elevating the hips, the pressure is off. So you can let the weight of your organs, your large intestine, the bladder, fall off of the deep pelvic floor tissues. Let the feet open wide. They are close to you to support your body's weight, but you do want this wide stance. And allow the knees to really fall away, very relaxed in a sense. This movement of the femur bone opening wider than the narrow position we're often holding will help the pelvic floor then start to lengthen. What happens in the pelvic floor area is hypertonicity of some tissues, meaning that those tissues are too tight to even do the jobs that they are meant to do. And one of those jobs is to support the weight of the organs. If we have eaten a lot and our digestive system is not working well, the intestines become full and blocked and heavy. So again, that adds more pressure on the pelvic floor. So this is all alleviating that, and it's our second step of this therapy. The breath work being the first step that we've done. And here, alleviating the weight of gravity on those tissues so that they can have a chance to sort of relax and move differently and respond differently. Begin now to heel toe your feet together and let the soles of the feet come together and the knees drop all the way out here. And now we'll start to move the pelvis by dropping the hip and the knee side to side. Hands down to support you, your body's weight, as you rock the pelvis side to side. Now, right now, my whole torso is moving. Take a moment and pause and come back and anchor your ribs to the floor, sinking your ribs down to the mat, and then start to move the pelvis just like we did earlier in that rotational wave-like pattern. And circle here. Now, because we're reclined, we're getting more tuck of the tailbone, more posterior tilts. And think of this almost like a little mini sit-up. So you're pulling your front ASIS, those hip bones, up towards your rib cage. And you're doing this micro sit-up, which is not our purpose here. It's just a little extra benefit in moving those muscles. So circling the tailbone is drawing a circle here. And then relax and pause. Remember which way you just went. And then relax and breathe into that pelvic floor area once again. So as you inhale, imagine that there's, again, full breath coming in between the hips, widening those tissues. And exhale, just heavy and soften. Breathing in wide and relaxed. And exhale, heavy in the hips. As you're doing that, we're going to also begin to massage the jaw. So the pelvic floor is down at the groin, and those muscles, attached muscles that run along the spine and go all the way up through the throat into the neck and the jaw. So we're going to use the fingers and find the hinge of your jaw and begin to massage there. I'm just going to kneel up and show you where we are with those fingers so you can see more clearly. Again, it's beside the jaw at the hinge and behind that earlobe, below the earlobe. And we'll be going up underneath the cheekbone here. So all of this is fair game to massage. Continue with that massage. And then relax the arms, come all the way back down to the floor once again. Here, seesaw the knees right to left, side to side, as we did at the very beginning. And this rocking motion is very calming for the body. Before we can do any sort of healing with the body, we must attach or connect to the nervous system, because it's the nervous system that will grant the body a sense of ease and wellness and come into a state of homeostasis. Coming back to center here, and then think of moving the pelvis in a circular motion, a clockwise motion, but the other way. So that could be counterclockwise for you or clockwise, depending on which way you went already. Continue to do that little bit of pelvic tuck here, or a lot of pelvic tuck. Continue to leave your ribs heavy down towards the ground and circle the pelvis. So as you're doing this, I mentioned that sort of sit-up sensation that's happening, but also you should feel some contraction of the buttocks, of the glutes. And that is really important. We want strong posterior muscles so that we can keep the pelvic bones pulled in their proper positioning and not falling inward towards each other. So by having strong glutes, we prevent the sacrum, the bone in the back of the pelvis, from falling forward towards the pubic symphysis. So strong glutes are part of pelvic floor healing as well. We're working that right now a little bit. And then pause and relax. Bounce the knees here. And this is helping to bring new, fresh lymph into the area. So this pumping action, the hips are a big pump, and there's nodes that are inside of the hip joint and many nodes all around the body. Actually, 1/3 of our lymph nodes are above the shoulders, in the neck and the head. So it is important to do the massage upstream to clear that lymph fluid as well. But right now, letting the knees, the hips do the movement of that lymph for you, And I like to call the lymph our liquid immunity, because that's exactly what it is. If we can keep it moving, then we'll keep the cells healthy. Those cells are getting new nutrients through the fluids that are getting pumped by this pulsing of the hips. And just pause here. Let's slowly bring the knees all the way up in vertical and plant your feet once again. Walk the feet out a little bit wider here. Now that we're here, we're going to roll to one side, so you can drop one hip down to the floor and stay in this diagonal slanted pelvis. So my right hip is dropped down and my left hip is actually higher, and there's this diagonal drop. So change your positioning, change your prop so that you can drop one hip down to the floor and open the knees and the feet again, even wider still. So this tilts, and now breathe. Going back to step one, breathing into those bicycle seat muscles. Unclenching your teeth and your jaw, so you're staying relaxed there, and keeping the ribs dropped down. The ribs thrusting forward is another issue that puts pressure on the pelvic floor. There's a lot in our body, and everything in the body affects the other parts. So our jaw affects the pelvic floor, our hip positioning, the feet, how we move when we walk affects the pelvic floor, how we sit. So everything, there's a lot to talk about with the pelvic floor. As you're here, dropping that right hip a little bit more if you can. In my own body, I know that my right ilium likes to shift and spin forward of the sacrum and the other ilium. So this is great therapy. We all have a little bit of shift, generally speaking. Almost everyone has that. So this is a nice way to, on this side, let it drop. And we'll be going to the other side as well. And the different relationship to gravity is really the difference here. That's why we're reclined. Let's come back to center. And then we'll adjust so that we sway over to the other side and let that hip drop towards the floor, and in this case, my right hip is lifted and my left hip is dropped down. Use your arms for support as you let that hip drop. Give it to gravity right here. And going back again to step one, breathe. You can open up your feet wide, just as long as that hip is dropped lower than the side that we just did. Breathe here. It's so interesting because the media makes us believe that high intensity, really big calorie expenditure workouts, work as hard as you can, that's the only thing that helps us get healthier. And that's not actually true. By breathing is actually walking, the two best things we can do for the body. The walking moves the limbs and gets everything working and circulating, and the breath calms the nervous system. So I love, brief high intensity workouts, wonderful. Burn up the cortisol so you can get that melatonin coming in the evening when we need it. But it's not as related to our wellness as nice, simple, calm work is. So calming that nervous system is of great, great benefit to our true wellness. Breathing. And just one more big breath here. And coming back to that centered perched position here. Great. We're going to bring the toes straight forward. Your feet are equal distance wider than your hips here. So we're finding symmetry. Toes straight forward so that the shin bones, the tibia, fibia, are centered within the knee joint. And now sink your rib cage to the floor. Tuck your tailbone. Press into your feet and hoist your hips off of the prop, and we'll remove the prop off to the side. As you're here now, stay in this position. I had mentioned the glutes. The glutes are required to have a healthy pelvic floor tissues, so we want the strong awakening of those muscles. Press through the feet and hoist the hips a little bit higher. Now we're going to roll the ribs closer to the floor, soften the rib cage down. Perfect. So now we have much more pelvic tuck happening. Untuck and retuck. Untuck and retuck here, yes. Press strongly through the feet. Last two. Last one. Roll the ribs down. Scoop the belly in. Land your pelvis to the floor here. And bring the soles of your feet together once more. The knees opened out wide here. Sink your ribs down to the ground. Now we're going to do a meditation of the pelvic floor here, thinking of your front right hip bone and your back left buttocks. So behind you, the glute that you're actually reclined on. Think of these 2 points, not up here, but down into the groin area. Think of that diagonal activation coming in. So you can think of it, maybe even what's better is the inner thigh on that right side and the glute on the left, and draw those 2 points muscularly together, and then relax again. Contract. Now when we're contracting, the muscles on the outside that we can feel, they're not tensing at all. We want the deep muscles internally to become awakened and relax again. So that inner right thigh to the left glute, think of this diagonal engagement, internal, and let it go. Now we'll exhale and find that contraction, and then on the inhale, release. Notice if your jaw is clenched and soften the jaw. Keep the diagonal activation, and that is getting the pelvic floor muscles, those bicycle seat muscles, working in a different way than normal. So we're awakening different muscle fascicles, we're awakening the nerves differently, and the fascial line a little differently. Continue, contract, and relax. That's our last one. We'll go to the other side. So thinking of the inner left thigh here and the right buttocks, so the back of the tush, it attaches to the ischial tuberosity, and that's really where we're working. So thinking of diagonal engagement and let go. And I know this is very odd. It almost seems, even though it's our body, it seems like it's esoteric, like we can't reach it. It seems interesting, but we can get it happening. Engage and relax. But I understand you might be confused by this, and that's okay. The thought of it in your body will make it happen. So just contract and relax, and think about bringing that diagonal engagement into those tissues and release. So trust that your body is doing it, whether you feel that you are or not. Trust your body and know that this is wonderful work. We are often told that Kegels are the answer to pelvic floor issues, and they're actually part of the problem a little bit. So we want to wake up the tissues in a different way and not just go to that Kegel all of the time. The Kegel can actually create even further tightness in tissues that are already too tight. And when muscles are too tight, they're actually generally weak as well. Continue this thought of bringing your inner left thigh and your right buttocks towards each other. But again, we're working with the tissues in between those two landmarks and not those landmarks themselves. So we want softness externally and contraction inside. Relax. Last three, contract and relax. And last one. Perfect. Slowly, slowly inch your knees up a little higher and a little higher. They may start to vibrate, and that's okay. We want to lessen the tension that's in that area. So I'm just letting my knees do a little shaky, shaky, shake. I actually learned this from one of my favorite clients. It's a somatics exercise. So we learned from you too, right? So of course, enter any comments that you might have or any suggestions. As you're here now, we'll walk the feet out as wide as the hip bones. The arms come down, but we're going to slide those shoulders a little bit under and turn the back of the hands to the floor. Sink your ribs to the ground, tuck the tailbone, and elevate your hips up high. Great. Now that we're here, we're lifting the right hip and center. Lift the left hip and center. Anchor into each foot a little bit more as you lift the pelvis. The palms, the biceps turn up to the sky is just a little extra therapy for the shoulder here and getting that external rotation. Press, lifting the hip. Now we're pressing down to the feet, but we're just moving the pelvis here. The knees are not moving too much. Your rib cage is not moving too much. We just want the movement of the pelvis right here. Nice. And then one more on each side. Last time on the left, come back to center, little pulses up. So we want to, again, get the pelvis tucking here. You don't have to lift your ribs so much. So it's different than a usual yoga bridged position. We're working into more of a posterior tucking action. 4 and 3, 2 and 1. Hold the hips high. Walk your feet all the way together and lift to the balls of the feet. Open the knees out and pulse the knees again. So this is that pumping action that we're getting into the lymph moving here, the lymph pumping into those lymph nodes. 4, 3, 2, open your knees wide, lower your hips all the way to the floor, and bring the soles of your feet together like the hands are in prayer. Great. So we're going to go more into a butterfly position. So bounce those knees again. Here we are fluttering the butterfly. And we'll be lifting that butterfly for butterfly bridge. Take a moment, relax the knees, bring the hands to your belly, and come back to your breath again. Relax into the pelvic floor. Breathing in. And as you exhale, think of softening and not contracting, but just letting your pelvic floor do what it naturally does. The pelvic floor is the bottom of our core. It's deeply linked with our breath because the respiratory diaphragm balloons like a big jellyfish, and the organs become displaced, which is why our belly expands. And then that is putting some pressure on the pelvic floor. To alleviate that downward force of our breath, that sometimes it's going more downward because we're restricted in the rib cage. There's tightness in the shoulders, and women are often wearing bras that are really squeezing the rib cage in. Bring your hands now to the ribs and widen the ribs. Go big, 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 big. And then exhale. So we're going to, instead of push downward on the pelvic floor with the breath, which is the more natural movement, we're going to let the diaphragm balloon big and wide and find new movement in the respiratory diaphragm. And movement that really should be there, but again, we're restricted in our shoulders and with our clothing. So we want to find that wide breath again so that we're not just pushing downward like a plunger on the pelvis. Perfect. Let's take 2 more wide breaths. Big and expansive here. Push the rib cage out as big as you can. And notice when the ribs widen, the belly is not widening as much and soften down. One last time, really push out. So think of this as push-ups for your respiratory diaphragm, and you're getting that big breath without the pressure downward. Lovely. Bringing the arms down next to you, we'll get that external rotation once again into the shoulders, but you can turn your wrist down to the floor if that feels more comfortable for you. Butterfly bridge, press into the side of the feet from the baby toe to your heel, and elevate your hips up once again. Good. We're hover low and lift up high. Hover low and lift. Down and up. Press the shoulders down into the ground a little bit here. Press the sides of the feet into the floor. Elevate and lower. Breathe through this in any natural way. You don't have to force a particular breath right now. Good. 6 and 5. Tuck the tail a little bit more. Leave a few more ribs onto the ground and get more tuck happening here. 3 and 2. This time, hold the hips up. We're going to teeter-totter a little side to side. Nice. And coming back to center, land your hips back down to the ground. Left leg lengthens along your mat, along the floor. Right knee comes in towards your chest right here. Now we're taking the legs, instead of this linear position in line with your hips, take the left leg off to the side and the right knee also off to the side here. So we're going to take that left arm now up and overhead, let it relax on the ground, and open that right knee, open the left leg. So we have a big wide stance. Again, those thigh bones, the femurs, going wide rather than forward and back. Breathe now here. So we have this beautiful lengthening through the left side seam. Breathe out into your left rib cage as much as possible. Relax through your toes, relax the jaw so you're not clenching your teeth. And just feel that big full breath right here. And this may feel very, not very productive. You might be thinking, oh my God, I want to go back to the lifts and do quote unquote work. But here is very beneficial. So again, getting our mindset and the idea that things always don't have to be hard to be beneficial for the body. We can relax into wellness. Perfect. One more breath here. Coming back to center, bring please both of your knees into your chest. Open both of the knees wide and rock right to left, side to side. Great. So we're keeping the legs wide. Hang on to the left side. Straighten your right leg and let the right leg drift outward to the right side. The right arm now comes up and overhead, and your left knee is already off to the side. Sink your ribs down, lengthen through the arm, nod your chin towards your throat here so it's not tipped up to the sky. And then think of breathing into the right rib cage here and find this lengthening in the body. Breathe. Unclench the teeth, unclench the jaw. And just 2 more breaths right here. This wide leg position also starts to wake up the glute medius muscle, again, to help support the pelvis. So it's important. Now that you're here, we'll leave that right ankle near the edge of the mat or a little wider than your hips. Take the left leg and straighten it on top of that right leg. We're going to cross the left ankle on top of the right here. Now the hip might be rolling off the ground. Go ahead and drop your left hip down to the floor. Take the right arm down beside you and start to shimmy your shoulders above the ankles. So we're creating this reclined crescent shape. Notice again, that left hip isn't rolling up. We drop the left hip to the floor. Take your left arm up and overhead, reaching to the right side, but leave that arm down onto the ground. And we can take both of the arms together and find this full side length of the body. Reach that left leg long, the left arm up nice and long, and sink your back and your hips flat onto the surface. You're on. Taking a long, deep breath once again. Breathe in and notice how your breath feels in this position. Notice what shifts, what moves, what sensations are happening. Hopefully it feels really nice. But slowly take the arms back down beside you. Take the left ankle all the way over, wider than your left hip, onto the other side here. So just a little bit, maybe about 2 or 3 inches wider than your left hip. The right ankle, let's straighten this right leg on top of that left leg. Notice how your right hip is on the mat and not rolling off the surface. Leave that hip down. Let's shimmy the shoulders over towards that left side, so roughly above that left ankle. Take that right arm up and over. Stay flat here. So you're a flatliner if you read the 10 Dimensions. That is a very amazing book. But yeah, so be a flat, one-dimensional person here. Breathing long and deep. Expand into the rib cage. Big breath. Unclench the cheeks and the jaw. And speaking of books, a lot of the work that we did today is from Katie Bowman and from Jill Miller. So those are 2 women who really take care of the issues that matter with the body. So it's not about getting a six-pack. It's about being able to live a very productive, long life. Big breath here. And once more, big, long breath. We're in no rush. And then slowly release the arms. Bring the shoulders back to center. Bend the knees here, flatten the feet on the ground. And just last time in butterfly, open the knees. And stay here for a few more breaths. I thank you so much for tuning in. You can feel free to stay reclined and work with that butterfly breath for your pelvic floor. And we'll be here. The YogaVision team is here for you. So absolutely leave us your comments and your suggestions for classes. Please do subscribe and let us know that you're benefiting from the work that we're doing. We love to get feedback and suggestions here. So click to subscribe and we'll see you again. Thank you so much.